Hi, this is John Pettigrew, and you're listening to Talking Through My Hat, a podcast that explores bookish businesses, the fantastic people who create them, and what those people have learned. I'm a hat wearer, a recovering editor, and the creator of Future Proofs, enabling editors and authors to work better online. To find out more, visit wearefutureproofs.com or follow me on Twitter at John_Pettigrew. Welcome to Talking Through My Hat. Today I'm talking with Chris Meade, the founder of If Book, a charitable company exploring the future of the book. He's also a newly minted Director of Nearlyology, as well as a previous Director of the Poetry Society and Book Trust. So thanks for talking to me today, Chris.
Thanks a lot.
So let's start with that word, Nearlyology. What do you mean by that? Where does it kind of come from?
Okay, so I was doing a practice-based PhD at Bath Spa. So it's digital writing, writing which isn't necessarily for the printed page.
Yeah.
And I was interested in how the things we nearly do in life influence who we are.
Okay.
And that's partly, I think, because of reaching a kind of time of life where I've got vivid memories of things I didn't quite do, things that I did do that I've kind of forgotten about.
Yeah.
Great achievements at the time, but you forget them, but you're still niggled by that thing that you to do. And I think it also seemed, the idea of nearly writing, I think in the digital age, we're no longer told by gatekeepers whether we are or aren't proper writers or proper musicians.
Yeah.
We can always put our work out on YouTube or whatever. In fact, we're published whether we like it or not on social media.
Yeah.
So we have to decide when our work is ready to show to other people. And I wanted to explore that a bit. And I think the other bit was feeling that because of those changes in media, you could write something, compose something in a very open way, doing writing and nearly writing and everything around it. And then somehow it would be possible to package it all up digitally in a way that wouldn't have been possible before. So I think all those things got me onto this. Well, I kind of invented the word nearlyology. And I'm really chuffed that the PhD is nearly writing nearlyology. That will be read aloud when I get my stuff, So I'm now a Doctor of Nearlyology and can decide what one of those does.
So you can spend the rest of your life trying to get it into the lexicon. I mean, futurology's in there, so nearlyology's got to have a chance, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we were just chatting before we started the official part of the interview, and you were saying you used to be back in a previous life a bookseller here in Cambridge at Heifers. You've done many things. What was it that led you to set aside your career and pursue the madness of a PhD?
It was, I think, this sort of time of life issue. I'm in my early 60s. Just had I'm very aware of that. A time where I wasn't quite so urgently in need of income, but I didn't want to no longer have a career.
Yeah. And
the PhD, having done an MA a few years ago, which led me into the whole exploration of the future of the book. Okay. The PhD arose as, a sort of commission, a reason to do some creative writing again, like somebody saying, I want you to do this by this time, which is always a good incentive. Chance to sort of reflect on, I suppose, what I've been doing and thinking.
Yeah.
Which could be professionally useful, but it's kind of worth it in its own, for its own sake.
Yeah. So I think PhDs are odd things, aren't they? I've done one. I know various people who've done them, and they serve different purposes at different stages of our life, don't they? And it's really interesting to see that this is a kind of almost a summing up kind of a thing. It's kind of looking back, reflective. So maybe a better word, isn't it?
Well, I think I've also always been somebody who feels that they're just about to get started. So right now, I must really decide what I'm going to do with my life. And also, I still feel I'm not really an academic. And as I say that to people, think, but hang about that. How else do you define academic?
Yeah. Well, so my son has just finished doing his GCSEs, and there's a lot of stuff at school about what are you going to do for your career? What are you going to become? And I'm thinking, I'm in my mid-40s. I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up. Yeah. Why should he know? He's only 16. So, yeah.
No, I still don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, one of the things that you're kind of quite well known for in recent times is If Book. Yep. How do you describe If Book to people if they haven't heard of it and what it does?
Well, I set it up with Bob Stein, who it was a real kind of expert pioneer of digital publishing, way when, but he runs the Institute for the Future of the Book, which is a very grand title for some people in his kitchen in New York. And we met in London, and he asked me to be a sort of co-director of that. And then I set up in my kitchen IF-Book, which isn't an institute because of the rules, but it's a charitable company. His definition was a think and do tank, exploring the future of the book. And I kind of like that mixture. So I've done with various other people and some Arts Council and other grant aid type funding, research projects. We did way back when we did a William Blake inspired Songs of Imagination and Digitization. We've done a lot of work in schools, partly because that's where the funding sort of points one. We made some resources for schools about the future of the book and creative projects like that. Yeah. And I suppose for the last 10 years or so, I left Book Trust thinking the shame about leaving that job is that I wouldn't get to travel anymore. Right. And in fact, I spent the next few years traveling all over the place, the world, having this conversation with people about what is the future of the book, which in a way, it's interesting, maybe another topic to discuss, whether it's over the future, that era of people not imagining reading books on screens or, has sort of passed, but, I don't know. You still have the same conversations a lot.
Well, I know there's a lot of deja vu with the discussion sometimes. I mean, did you come to any conclusions about what the future of the book was?
Well, I think actually going back to Bob's thing, the idea that a book is the thing that we carry ideas around in, and that even at the beginning of that conversation, there was the recognition that actually we carry our ideas around in our laptops in a way more than in. That even if you read as many books as you possibly could and don't have a telly, you still probably receive a lot of ideas through digital media. Yeah. And the word, I think, that recognition that publishing, I mean, the book used to be one of the few ways of getting more than a few people to read, to see your work. It's like a photo. The whole publishing industry was an extension of photocopying, really, wasn't it? It was. You had to have bookshops and books because otherwise not many people could read you.
Well, this is a lot of what was in Michael Bascar's Content Machine, wasn't it? It's this history of technology allowing us to promulgate information. Yeah.
And I think the sort of this recognition that now we're published whether we like it or not, and that the making of a book is more about saying, no, I won't show it to anybody until it's I want a few select people to see it, in its finished form. It's such a reversal. It's fascinating, I think.
Yeah, there's. It's the history of technology is often this thing. It's with the removal of barriers to communication very often, whether it's physical transport, whether it's communication in the strict sense, and this kind of stuff. And we it really annoys me when you read in newspapers. Oh yes, teenagers don't read and this kind of stuff. You think actually they're spending their entire day reading. They're doing, it's just what, But what they're reading is something different to what they used to read. But such has ever been the case.
They spend the whole time reading and writing. I mean, before.
Well, my daughter's 14. She writes novels because she's on Wattpad. And she shares this stuff with her friends. She gets comments. She gives them comments. And this kind of social writing thing is just it's a thing. It's a natural thing for them, which it couldn't be when I was young. Because, the best you could do would be to write something and send it to a fan magazine or something,
And the whole debate about social media is about whether we can all now speak to each other. Yeah, is that a problem? In a way, it is. I mean, we are looking at the implications of this very dramatic change in how we talk to each other. But it is kind of weird that it's so ideal in a way, the ability for us all to speak to each other, to publish, to find things that interest us very easily. And yet the implications for that are some of them are quite chilling, but a lot of them I still think are absolutely wonderful. Yeah. The ability to keep in touch with a cloud of contacts from different points in your lives, and how different that is from the days when if you lost your address book, you lost a whole chunk of,
your life. Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And do you find that has changed how you approach things like your study, your PhD, how it approaches how you run a company, maybe or something like IfBook, that change in sources of information or the opening up of source information? I mean, back in the day, if you wanted to learn how to run a business, you had to read a business book or go on a course. Yep. Now there are so many other different options. I mean, how does that affect you and the way you do things?
Well, two bits. I mean, I think for the creative writing, the main thing of the PhD was to look at this process of composition. What if you, instead of deciding what you're going to end up with, you think, what do I want to look at and use to tell a story?
Yeah.
Which includes things like workshops and recordings and conversations and performance and all those sorts of things can be kind of meshed together in different ways. I think that's absolutely fascinating and far more interesting than how to make an app out of it.
Yeah.
In terms of sort of business, I suppose at the moment, if I'm honest, I was thinking about this morning, that actually where I'm at again in my life is being able to have almost a sort of nearly business. I've been busy with the PhD.
Yeah.
I've not been seeking freelance work. I've had bits and pieces of work. I can still have some kind of presence in the world, which is very active and solid.
Yeah.
Look at my website. Look at I mean, one thing that IfBook does every year is we support the New Media Writing Prize, which Bournemouth University do the admin for, which is a very good sort of central, plank, I think, for what we're doing.
Yeah.
We set up a thing called the Dot Award, which is more for an individual writer who's kind of inspired by digital ways of communicating.
Yeah.
And around that, one can create a kind of presence in the market, in the industry.
Yeah.
Which I think is really useful. I mean, as with lots of discussions about new media, there's the question, how do you generate money from it? And which at the moment I'm not really worrying too much about. But you do have this ability to sort of push it in whichever day. You could do something today to try to get a few more people to look at your podcast or look at my website. The power is in our hands, even though we're not quite sure what to do with it. But business skills, I was thinking about that. I mean, it's funny because going back, I mean, my working life running, I mean, Book Trust had 50 plus employees. We ended up with a turnover, an amazing, because we were for the Book Start scheme, Books for Babies scheme.
Yeah.
We got over 10 million a year from the Treasury, thanks to Gordon Brown back in the day. Seriously complicated logistics of how to get book bags into the homes of families.
I remember when we got them, they were great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful scheme. Again, fascinating. I mean, how complicated it is to get paper
in
hands, whereas all those mums and dads were wandering about with mobiles looking at them and thought, well, why not put something there first, maybe? But in terms of management skills, I used to buy loads of those business books. I love those ones that say, everything you need to know about management in 10 minutes. And I always got bored even before the 10 minutes were up. So. Whereas there's a website, does it still exist, called Business Bulls, which was...
I've not come across that one.
Whenever anybody mentioned some kind of businessy thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
It had lots of actually quite good, exercises to do with management teams and things like that. So I would rely on that. But usually most was having a conversation with somebody sometime.
Yeah. Having people who know a bit more than you, who can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, who are kind of inspirational in some way.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
So when it came to actually setting up IfBook, I mean, okay, Bob came to you and said, and you had the conversation, you thought we should do this. When you came to set that up, I'm kind of intrigued by this idea of a charitable company. We're kind of all familiar with what a company is, and we're all familiar with what a charity is. And this is sitting somewhere in the middle. So how did you go about setting it up, and why did you take that kind of route?
Okay, so the charitable company I think most arts organisations have that sort of structure. It was actually because we were applying for funding from Italy Fairband and needed to have have charitable status. Yeah. but it's not about, you're not sort of selling flags to increase your income to do a particular thing.
Yeah.
But we had a very good auditor who helped us, create the template for that and make sure that we were doing all the correct things.
Yeah. Because it does increase the burden of reporting and stuff compared to a normal company, doesn't it?
Yeah, it means that we have to have a board of trustees, a small one, who meet a few times a year, and we need to be audited annually. That's the main things about it. And, of course, you're not making profit. You can't profit. I suppose that most of my work in life I've been seeking grants rather than selling that. But I don't think there's a huge difference between the two. I mean, you're
selling something to somebody.
You're being by the Arts Council to do quite a specific thing.
Yeah.
In a way, I think far more watched over than if you're generating something that everybody wants, a widget that everybody wants for a few years.
Yeah.
That kind of commercial activity is very freewheeling, isn't it, in a way? Whereas, however successful the Book Start scheme is, you will always have to account for every penny.
Yeah.
And not just on lots of different levels as well. You'll have to prove that you're doing the ethically correct thing and the financially viable thing and the legally all
yeah.
Actually, with If Book has always just been me and whoever I felt like working with. And I remember at my book trust leaving party, sort of looking out at everybody there and thinking of all these, employees and board members and associates and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And from tomorrow, there's only the people I want to
be
with and the others, and that suddenly seemed wonderfully simple and liberating.
So that's quite a nice position to be in, to pick and choose who you work with.
But since then, being able to say, to phone people up and say, do you want to work on this and then do it again or not, was lovely.
Yeah. So what do you find hardest about, excuse me, what do you find hardest about running that organisation or running any of these organisations? None of us kind of find everything natural. Some people love the sales, some people love the finance. Which are the bits that you try and kind of palm off on people or just have to learn to grit your teeth and deal with?
Well, we're now, it's a very, very minimal organisation, which is in a process of, for me, deciding what I want to do next. So really, I'm self-employed. I have a fantastic friend who comes in once a year and we spend 2 days doing the books, which I can never think properly about those without her. It's always at that time of year that I get out great. I've got a whole wodge of horrible receipts that I hardly look at. I don't know. It's great being able to bring in different people to do different things. Going back to running Book Trust with a proper sort of senior management team and all the rest of it. I really kind of liked. Management is the bit which is toughest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, herding cats type side of. It can be the best bit, I think. It's one when you see people flourish and when you can kind of help find a role for somebody that really suits them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of stuff in the kind of arts world where there's all of those things are very underestimated. They're just thought of. I was going to say that. I think there's this notion about what is creative. That's quite a big thing for me. The idea that certain jobs are creative and others aren't. And I think the creativity, even of being a writer, lots of the activities involved in being a creator are fairly mundane and repetitive and boring.
Yeah.
Are incredibly creative parts of fairly conventional jobs where you have to find new solutions to problems and work with people in different ways.
Yeah.
So I kind of hate that idea that there are sort of utterly creative jobs and creative jobs. I think they all mingle.
Yeah.
And I think actually one of the things I'm slightly going around now, I tend to always be writing a sort of grand plan for whatever I'm doing, even if it's me filling up my time, the sort of that structure of the 3-year plan and what your priorities are. Sometimes I think it's very useful and sometimes I think it's just a way of deflecting, getting on with it.
I think it's a good idea to know where you think you're going. So when you think about the next few years of If Book or the next few years of what you're going to do, even around that, how do you go about putting that together, because obviously, a lot of the business that you're thinking about is the future. It's where the direction things are going. So how do you kind of reconcile the study of something that's changing with trying to plan?
Well, I think at the moment I want to be doing more creative stuff. I mean, what was great about the PhD was in a way putting the things I've been talking about in theory into practice, both as a writer, but not just as the creative writer, but also as the maker of something.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some work before, during, and would want to carry on with I think the whole thing about collaboration is fascinating, the ability to collaborate. I've been involved, we wrote a novel over a weekend with 4 people. We did it again with about 40. We did it again with groups of people all over the world. I think this ability to share your page with lots of people, using Google Docs to write together with other people is an absolutely fascinating thing to do.
Yeah.
I would love to do more of that work. With the Arvon Foundation, we've been doing a kind of annual digital project for years now, just finishing its cycle. But that thing about the group of writers working together very freely, improvising together like a jazz band almost, on the same page, I think there's so much potential for that. That space between the idea of literature as a sort of a single fixed object and the way that now you could have the same novel slightly differently every day, different groups of people setting the parameters for how they want to work and then making whatever seems to, again, what seems the natural way of putting together what you've done.
Yeah.
So that's how I want to work. And also I'm interested in providing a space for so many people who are working in different art forms, different kinds of writing, different ages as well, but are working kind of in between different businesses and genres, who I think need a space to kind of describe why they're doing what they're doing in their own terms and to get a bit of solidarity with others who are in that in-between state.
Yeah.
So actually the thing called ifsopress.com, a little kind of online journal thing which I'm developing at the moment. I want to be doing more of that kind of work. And I think trying to sort of slightly shed my desire to always assume that everything has to be heading towards a kind of an educational grant application and making things that people enjoy and want to engage with and maybe hopefully pay for as well.
Oh, radical stuff. So with all of this change and stuff, what is it that keeps you coming back to writing, to publishing, to books? Yeah,
I still love the idea of what literature's about. I think a lot of the focus on the future of the book as an object has led to a lot more interest in what it is beyond the object. Literature as something that happens in your heart. The Benjamin Zephaniah quote about, however you get published, your aim is to publish in people's hearts. And I think that is such a sort of profound thought, because although it equates, I mean, movies happen in your heart, TV, podcasts, all these things happen in your heart. There's something about the kind of the quality of literature, the space that it offers you in your head and in your heart, which seems very precious, but hugely up for discussion. Maybe we will suddenly think that we're getting more of that from visual culture than we will get from written anymore. I don't know. Maybe new forms of collaborative work will seem to quite naturally seem more appropriate to our times than a fixed novel. I have no assumptions either way. I'm not like I don't trash the past. I'm not into things, but I think it's a fascinating time to really concentrate. Actually, one of the things I've always felt about the whole debate about the future of the book is that it got so dominated by publishers who were worrying about the business model. Penguin books, and then writers worrying about that, rather than think, what can we make?
Well, that's a fascinating thought to end on. Thanks very much for your time, Chris. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you very much.
This was Talking Through My Hat, a podcast by John Pettigrew, founder of We Are Futureproofs. Please let me know your thoughts by leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or by commenting on the website, myhat.wearefutureproofs.com. You can subscribe to this channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Our theme music is from hooksounds.com.